so I have a lot of people that come to me with a lot of experience and a lot of expertise that are just looking for a very honest publisher who isn't going to make them write things that they don't believe. And so we've got a big team of people. We've got, more than 20 analysts, and we cover a lot of markets. We have a lot of different kind of products. I don't want to go into a pitch with you, because the point is, if you've got 20 or 30 super competent, very experienced people working on your behalf in the financial markets for a very reasonable price, you're going to do a lot better than otherwise. And I would challenge anybody to read our newsletters and to compare it to whatever they've been getting from their brokers or from their mutual fund managers and see the difference.
Well, I know that so many publications I trust just say that your information is spot on, and we're just honored to have you here on the radio with us. Porter Stansberry is our guest. This segment's almost over, long segment coming up, but Porter, you got interrupted by the break. Get into the mathematics, the economic facts that make you now not look at $2,000 an ounce gold like you predicted, 5-6 years ago, but now $10,000 an ounce gold.
Well, it's just, unfortunately, it's just a simple mathematics. You can know that when money was sound and banking was more sound in the past, it was normal for countries to back their currencies with precious metals. Let's say a 10% backing of the currency in gold. Of course, there are economists, and I would be among them, who say you should run 100% gold standard currency. That's the only legitimate way to do it. But regardless of all that, I'm not talking about, the philosophy of it. I mean, how it was actually practiced. 10% reserve gold-backed currency. If you look at the amount of money that's been created over the last 5 years, to accomplish a 10% gold-backed currency, the price of gold would have to be around $10,000 an ounce. Measuring money of zero maturity, which is demand deposits, basically, any kind of digital receipt you can get overnight. You need enough gold to back it 10%. With gold would have to be $10,000 an ounce. That assumes, that the amount of gold in circulation isn't going to change dramatically overnight, and we know that it can't. It's very difficult to increase the supply of gold. It only increases about 1% a year, even with all the mining that's going on. So you can just do the math, and you can figure out what the price of gold would have to be to back the currency at that level.
Well, I remember reading some of your material 4 or 5 years ago talking about 2000, and I could see the basic fundamental mathematics, as you say, and then seeing many other analysts who were being truthful say the same thing, and we got called lunatics. But, this is not rocket science. As you keep saying, that's what's so frustrating. It's that the mainstream media has a stake in lying to people, but now the population is beginning to not buy their propaganda. It's like 60 Minutes admits the national unemployment's above 20%. Even 60 Minutes admits it, but the government and the president says it's 9.8, Porter.
Yeah, I know. I've really enjoyed watching General Electric because General Electric owns CNBC. They're a massive media company, and people that I know like to call them the for-profit wing of the Obama administration. And if you look at GE's balance sheet, it's a nightmare. The company currently owes more than $650 billion.
Porter, stay there. I don't want to interrupt you again with the break. Long segment coming up. Let's run through this and then talk about what you believe this dollar devaluation will look like, this accelerated dollar devaluation, and why it's one of the biggest things in modern history to take place, and when you think it's going to happen in the upcoming year. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Websites, endofamerica3.com.
We're on the march. The empire's on the run. Alex Jones and the GCN Radio Network. We now take you live to the Central Texas Command Center and the heart of the resistance, rallying patriots worldwide. You're listening to The Alex Jones Show.
These powerful mega central banks create the thousands of trillions of dollars of derivatives crud. They get the populations dependent. They get incredible power on the way up. On the way down, they hold you hostage and demand bailouts. I want to talk about how we individually protect ourselves in Porter Stansberry's very highly researched and educated view. But also, again, to make precise, daily predictions are impossible. But generally, why he stuck his neck out to say 2011 is the year for the dollar implosion as the world reserve currency. So I want you to get into that next, Porter. And again, the website's endofamerica3.com. Barron's has called his previous predictions a dire prophecy because they came true. He predicted years before it happened that GM would go bankrupt, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and America's biggest mall owner, General Growth Properties, and others. And now he's making a much more larger prediction of just, and since he's been making this prediction, you see it accelerating towards it. But finishing up with your General Electric analysis.
Well, General Electric is a great example of the problems in the country. For the last 10 years, I was talking a lot about General Motors, which I thought exemplified these problems because General Motors was a very big player in the mortgage market, especially the prime mortgage market. When it comes to GE, I think they're a great example of the overall problems of the economy, which is essentially this business model is vastly over-leveraged. So if you look at their balance sheet, they owe more than $600 billion. They're spending about $20 billion a year right now on interest. That's eating up, a vast majority of their cash flow. And if interest rates go up, they will not be able to afford the interest on those debts. Frankly, General Electric should have gone bankrupt back in 2008. The only reason why they didn't was because the government guaranteed all of their debts. That guarantee is going to expire in 2011. It's going to be very interesting to see whether or not General Electric can afford the increasing costs of maintaining that amount of debt. The same general problem is happening across the economy, and the same general problem is bound to happen sooner or later to the U.S. government itself. You remember Geithner said that America would never, never, ever lose this AAA rating. I bet within 12 months that is no longer the case.
Well, the Chinese, British firms, European firms have been delisting the AAA rating in the last 3 months.
Yeah, it was listening to Geithner say that was the equivalent of listening to the Brazilian finance minister 20 years ago saying that the real would not be devalued. As soon as you heard him say it, you knew it was exactly what was going to happen the next day. And I know currency traders have made a lot of money just listening for Treasury Secretary to say such foolish things. The problem now is that it's our Treasury Secretary, it's our currency, and not only is it our currency, it's the world's currency. So this is going to be a much larger problem than just a simple devaluation of an emerging market.
Well, remember Geithner earlier this year told the Chinese economic students that we're not going to devalue the dollar. They knew that the United States was devaluing it globally at the time, so they laughed at him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's what Alex. The thing that boggles my mind about all this is if you listen to the video, and I know you have, just find something in there that isn't actually a fact or isn't actually just logic. If General Electric can't afford to maintain a $600 billion debt, it will have to go bankrupt. That's really bad news for our economy, and I wish it wasn't true. But guess what? Everyone has access to General Electric's balance sheet. It's a public company. You can go look at the numbers yourself. And explain to me how a company that's one of the largest in the United States, one of the largest in the world, explain to me how that company can operate in a way that's effective if the government of the United States has to guarantee its debt. Doesn't anyone see that this is a problem?
Well, let's talk about it from this angle. How do you see it unraveling? What do you see government's response to it being? And obviously we can try to protect ourselves individually if we see it ahead of the curve, and that's what your video deals with at endofamerica3.com. Again, that's endofamerica3.com, Porter. But I mean, that's a lot of questions there, but just basically, how do you see it unraveling? It's already beginning to do it and accelerate that. What will government's response be from what we've seen them do around the world? What can we do individually? And is there any way to stop this on the large scale?
Alex, the second question I think is more interesting because the fact of the matter is it's already unraveling, and the way to protect yourself is really pretty simple. I go into details in the video, but it's real simple. You want to own energy, agriculture, and sound money. So you want to own, a farm would be great, or the equivalent. There's a lot of publicly listed farms. You can buy the stock of a farm. You want to own energy, that mostly means oil, and you want to own sound money, and that mostly means gold and silver. The how-to stuff is actually pretty simple. Unfortunately, my experience has been people won't take simple steps to protect themselves because they can't imagine the future changing as much as it's going to. I mean, you have to imagine, you have no idea how many times I got ridiculed, heckled at investment conferences when I warned that, Fannie and Freddie's balance sheet was unsustainable. And the numbers were clear to everybody, but no one could imagine a world where Fannie and Freddie became, bankrupt. And that's exactly what happened. The second question is there a way to stop it? And the answer is, of course there is. But the alternatives to stopping it are very painful. So we have two choices. We can either admit the problem and we can force our creditors to take a haircut, and that means essentially a form of bankruptcy and restructuring that would be very painful to our economy. There's no doubt about it. Or we can risk a hyperinflation by printing more money and allowing deadbeat borrowers to escape with a devalued currency. And the number two choice, the devaluation, is the political choice, because the politicians will blame higher prices on entrepreneurs and businessmen. They won't accept the blame.
And they will loot within the hyperinflation because they get the money first. We need to go with the haircut and write off most of these debts that the banks created as derivatives. Do you agree with that statement?
It's real simple. If you go with the restructuring, the people who made the bad loans, they pay the price.
Yes.
Okay. If you don't, it's going to be the people who have been have had integrity and have lived with discipline.
That's right. I bet on gold and silver. I bet on a farm. I've got a family farm. I bet on that 12 years ago. I've been right. I shouldn't have to pay all these international bankers by destroying my currency and my future.
You're exactly right. And guess what? You're not going to get that choice, because believe me, they're going to make you pay through the nose. They're going to make you pay in ways you haven't even imagined yet.
They're now announcing rainwater taxes, traveling transponders in all cars, national sales taxes, VATs, carbon taxes. What are some of the other ways they're going to rape us?
Well, the big thing that they're going to do, and it's already on the books, it takes effect January 1st, 2013, is they're going to put a withholding tax on all money transfers that leave the United States. So they're going to make you pay a 30% withholding tax to move money to a bank outside the country. And if you want your money back, you have to file a claim, a tax return that shows that that money is not owed to the government.
Incredible.
It's incredible. And, the only way really to even begin to pay for our debts is some kind of a massive wealth tax. So they're going to, they're already making you record if you buy gold or silver. They're going to have that information somewhere. They're setting up to have the ability to tax not just your income, but your assets.
But people are already revolting. I don't see them getting away with this, no matter how many neighborhood snitches they've got, and no matter how much brainwashing. I don't think people are going to put up with it.
I hope you're right, Alex, but I don't think so. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens. But you don't have to catch everybody to terrorize the whole country.
Look, there's no doubt when they got rid of Glass-Steagall 11 years ago, they accelerated setting up the snitch networks and the oppression. I mean, they premeditated this whole thing, and it's so diabolical.
Well, I don't know how organized they are in that regard, but certainly if you look at the incentives that they have been setting up, they have been structuring our economy to benefit the largest corporations in the government itself, and there is no doubt in my mind that that's going to continue.
It's outrageous, and now they're trying to pass laws to restrict family farms and trucking your own vegetables into town and selling them. I mean, this is becoming the Soviet Union. How do you, as you said, it's already really starting to move faster and faster. It's already rolling. But when do you, and I know you're not making an exact prediction here, but when do you see the real danger zones in the United States and worldwide for the final meltdown? We already see the Chinese and Russians 2 weeks ago announcing, hey, we're not going to trade with each other in dollars anymore. We see the Arabs moving that way. We see worldwide people not wanting dollars. So we already see the greenback going from king to being, almost like some type of toxic waste. So how do you see that move towards the exits accelerating? And will it be like other devaluations that, where people inside Mexico don't really know how devalued their dollar is or their peso until they leave the country? Or will this be different because it's the first global devaluation because it was all pegged to the dollar? And what will that cause worldwide?
Well, the question I would ask you in return is, people ask me this, well, when is it all going to start? The question I ask you in return is, what's it going to take for you to notice it's happening?